So if we look at our code, it seems like this code is complicated enough that it might warrant being out of the routes definition in something like a class or a function. So in this next step, what we're going to do is move this controller into a class. Let's go to the resource pack directory, and we'll open up the 27th step, which is called wrapping our controller in a class. Go ahead and copy the code and paste it over the code that's currently in the app.php file and save it. If we compare this version of app.php with our last version in step 26, I'm going to open these up in our file comparison tool. You can see that the main changes are in this routes section. The comparison tool is having a bit of a hard time figuring out that what we actually did was we took the code out of the controller and put it inside of its own class here, but it's doing its best. Now that we've seen them side by side, it will be a little bit easier to look at this code inside of our editor. So I'm going to jump back to the editor. So here in our controller, we're setting the value to an array. Now if you go to php.net and you take a look at the languages.types.callable.php page, you can see what valid callbacks are. We've gone through nearly every one. For call user func, if we go down here, you can see we can pass a function name. We did that with our goodbye page. And what we're going to do now is this version, where we create an object, we pass an object in, as well as the method to call for the controller. If we jump back to the code here, you can see what we're doing is creating a new leap year controller. That's what's going on up here. And then the method index action, which is this first and only method inside of this controller class. Inside of this index action, we have the same logic that we had when it was an anonymous function inside of our controller attribute down here. We check to see if it's a leap year, we return a positive response if so, a negative response if not. If we go back to the browser and refresh our is leap year page, everything should work the same way that it did before. And our code, if we go back to the editor, seems a bit more natural. And it's easier to tell what the meaning of the code is. This is one advantage of moving code into classes, because you get to label exactly what the class is and what the methods are, and the relationship between the two is defined, and you almost don't have to write comments a lot of times because the name of the functions and the classes can make it very clear what the role of the code is about. This is something that we talked about extensively in the object-oriented programming section.